7. It was a wide room, the whole width of the house. It had a low beam ceiling and brown plaster walls decked out with strips of Chinese embroidery and Chinese and Japanese prints and grained wood frames. There were low bookshelves. There was a thick pinkish Chinese rug in which a gopher could have spent a week without showing his nose above the nap. There were floor cushions, bits of odd silk tossed around as if whoever lived there had to have a piece he could reach out and thumb. There was a broad low divan of old rose tapestry. It had a wad of clothes on it, including lilac-colored silk underwear. There was a big carved lamp on a pedestal. 2 other standing lamps with jade green shades and long tassels. There was a black desk with carved gargoyles at the corners, and behind it a yellow satin cushion on a polished black chair with carved arms and back. The room contained an odd assortment of odors, of which the most emphatic of the moment seemed to be the pungent aftermath of cordite and the sickish aroma of ether. On a sort of low dais at one end of the room, there was a high-backed teakwood chair, in it which Miss Carmen Sternwood was sitting on a French orange shawl. She was sitting very straight with her hands on the arms of the chair, her knees close together, her body stiffly erect in the pose of an Egyptian goddess. Her chin level, her small bright teeth shining between her parted lips. Her eyes were wide open. The dark slate color of the iris had devoured a pupil. They were mad eyes. She seemed to be unconscious, but she didn't have the pose of unconsciousness. She looked as if, in her mind, she was doing something very important and making a fine job of it. Out of her mouth came a tiny chuckling noise which didn't change her expression or even move her lips. She was wearing a pair of long jade earrings. They were nice earrings and had probably costed a couple of $100. She wasn't wearing anything else. She had a beautiful body, small, light, compact, firm, rounded. Her skin in the lamplight had the shimmering luster of a pearl. Her legs didn't quite have the raffish grace of Mrs. Reagan's legs, but they were very nice. I looked her over without either embarrassment or ruthishness. As a naked girl, she was not there in that room at all. She was just a dope. To me, she was always just a dope. I stopped looking at her and looked at Geiger. He was on his back on the floor beyond the fringe of a Chinese rug in front of a thing that looked like a totem pole. It had a profile like an eagle and its wide round eye was a camera lens. The lens was aimed at the naked girl in the chair. There was a blackened flash bulb clipped to the side of the totem pole. Geiger was wearing Chinese slippers with thick felt soles, and his legs were in black satin pajamas, and the upper part of him wore a Chinese embroidered coat, the front of which was mostly blood. His glass eyes shone brightly up at me. It was by far the most lifelike thing about him. At a glance, none of the 3 shots I heard had missed. He was very dead. The flash bulb was the sheet lightning I had seen. The crazy scream was a doped and naked girl's reaction to it. The 3 shots had been somebody else's idea of how the proceedings might be given a new twist. The idea of the lad who had gone down the back steps and slammed into a car and raced away, I could see merit in his point of view. A couple of fragile gold-veined glasses rested on a red liqueur tray on the end of a black desk, besides a pot-bellied flagon of brown liquid. I took the stopper out and sniffed at it. It smelled of ether and something else, possibly laudanum. I had never tried the mixture, but it seemed to go pretty well with the Geiger menage. I listened to the rain hitting the roof and the north windows. Beyond was no other sound, no cars, no siren, just the rain beating. I went over to the divan and peeled off my trench coat and pawed through the girl's clothes. There was a pale green rough wool dress of a pull-on type with half sleeves. I thought I might be able to handle it. I decided to pass up her underclothes. Not from feelings of delicacy, but because I couldn't see myself putting her pants on and snapping her brassiere. I took the dress over to the teak chair on the dais. Miss Sternwood smelled of ether also. At a distance of several feet, the tiny chuckling noises were still coming from her and a little froth oozed from her chin. I slapped her face. She blinked and stopped chuckling. I slapped her again. "Come on," I said brightly. "Let's be nice. Let's get dressed." She peered at me, her slaty eyes as empty as holes in a mask. "Goo-goo totorel," she said. I slapped her around a little more. She didn't mind the slaps. They didn't bring her out of it. I set to work with the dress. She didn't mind that either. She let me hold her arms up and she spread her fingers out as if that was cute. I got her hands through the sleeves, pulled the dress down over her back, and stood her up. She fell into my arms, giggling. I set her back in the chair and got her stockings and shoes on her. "Let's take a little walk," I said. "Let's take a nice little walk." We took a little walk. Part of the time her earrings banging against my chest, and part of the time we did the splits in unison like adagio dancers. We walked over to Geiger's body and back. I had her look at him. She thought he was cute. She giggled and tried to tell me so, but she just bubbled. I walked her over to the dive van and spread her out on it. She hiccuped twice, giggled a little, and went to sleep. I stuffed her belongings in my pockets and went over behind the totem pole thing. The camera was there all right, set inside it, but there was no plate holder in the camera. I looked around on the floor, thinking he might have got it out before he was shot. No plate holder. I took a hold of his limp, chilling hand and rolled him a little. No plate holder. I didn't like this development. I went into the hall and at the back of the room and investigated the house. There was a bathroom on the right and a locked door. A kitchen at the back. The kitchen window had been jimmied. The screen was gone and the place where the hook had pulled out showed on a sill. The back door was unlocked. I left it unlocked and looked into the bedroom on the left side of the hall. It was neat, fussy, womanish. The bed had a flounced cover. There was perfume on the triple mirrored dressing table besides a handkerchief, some loose money, a man's brushes, a key holder. A man's clothes were in the closet, a man's slippers under the flounced edge of the bed cover. Mr. Geiger's room. I took the key holder back to the living room and went through the desk. There was a locked steel box in a deep drawer. I used one of the keys on it. There was nothing in it but a blue leather book with an index and a lot of writing in code, and the same slanting printing that had written to General Sternwood. I put the notebook in my pocket, wiped the steel box where I had touched it, locked the desk up, pocketed the keys, turned the gas logs off in the fireplace, wrapped myself in my coat, and tried to rouse Miss Sternwood. It couldn't be done. I crammed her vagabond hat on her head and swayed her in her coat and carried her out to her car. I went back and put all the lights out and shut the front door, dug her keys out of her bag and started the Packard. We went off down the hill without lights. It was less than 10 minutes' drive to Alta Brea Crescent. Carmen spent them snoring and breathing ether in my face. I couldn't keep her head off my shoulder. It was all I could do to keep it out of my lap.